Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So today I am going to discuss behavioral type interviews, right? So I'm going to specifically look at behavioral interviews. So these are the most common types of interviews that you would come across. People, or employers I should say, really want to see how you might behave in a certain situation, right? So which is why obviously they're called behavioral interviews. And so employers a lot of times want to see how you would behave. They are the most common. It is the most common type of interview that you will come across. And so you could expect to get a number of questions to see how you might behave in a particular situation. And so I'm going to go through this particular type of interview, offer up what are some questions that you're most likely going to come across, just a couple that we'll look at, and then talk about two different types of evidence that you can offer. And that's pretty key, right? So two different types of evidence that you can offer. The first type we'll discuss is positive evidence. So when you respond to one of those questions, you can offer something called positive evidence, and we'll go through an example of what positive evidence would be, and then we'll also go through an example of what contrary evidence would be. So contrary evidence questions, we'll go through that as well. Those are the two types of behavioral interview questions that you would come across. So you will come across your positive evidence behavioral interview questions and your contrary evidence behavioral type interview questions are the two most common types of interview questions that you will face in that specific type of behavioral interview category. So we're going to look at that today. All right, so the first thing to kind of go over here is behavioral based questions are really easy to identify, right? So you're going to know what is a behavioral type interview question the moment you hear it, right? You're going to know what it is. They're very easy to identify. So anytime you hear someone say anything along the lines of, tell me about a time when. So tell me about a time when. You know that is a behavioral type of interview question, right? So tell me about a time when. And so, and obviously, you know, they'll go on to finish whatever direction they're going with that. But once you hear that, you know that is a behavioral type of interview when you hear tell me about a time when. All right, so just to kind of cue you up on that. So tell me about a time, let's just kind of continue. Tell me about a time when you successfully led a team project, right? So tell me about a time when you successfully led a team project. Now, I'm not going to go through answering all of these questions in this particular video. I'm going to have 2 or 3 videos specifically dedicated to how you respond to these questions. But I kind of want to just let you know what they are first, and then I'll come back subsequently and then provide answers to them. So tell me about a time when you successfully led a team project. All right, that could be a behavioral type question. So what they're looking for is for you now to provide details about, yes, you led a team project, and specifically how did you lead this project is what they're looking for. Your description of what you did, how you delegated, how you managed the day-to-day operations of this project upon its completion, you know, all that sort of stuff, right? So they're looking to see, you know, how did you actually lead this project? That would be an example of that type of question. All right, so positive evidence, for example, says that, so tell me about a recent team experience. Again, could be another example. Tell me about a recent team experience. That could be another example as well under the positive evidence. So you're going to provide evidence, obviously positive, that says that you are a good team leader, or that demonstrates that you are a good team leader. All right, the other type of behavioral type interview question is contrary evidence questions, right? Contrary evidence questions. So tell me about a time when you planned to reach a goal and you were unsuccessful, and how you managed that situation. So tell me about a time when you planned to, meet some goal and you were unsuccessful in achieving whatever goal it is that you set out to achieve. So nobody's perfect. No one has probably always had things go their way. So now this is an example again for them to see what you did, and it's not so much so what went wrong, but a lot of times how you handled it. And did you learn anything from what went wrong? So somewhere in that answer, are you saying that you went back and you did some kind of analysis of the entire project, and you specifically also were trying to look to see, well, how can we learn from what happened? And that's what they want to hear as well. Not that you're perfect, but did you learn from anything from what happened? Why was the project unsuccessful? And you've got to be able to give that type of evidence. So let's go through now an example of positive evidence question. So keep this in mind, STAR, S-T-A-R. If you read any good interviewing book, you would come across this, STAR, S-T-A-R. So S is for situation, right? S is for situation. T is for task, A is for action, and then R is for results. So S-T-A-R, right? STAR. So we've got situation, task, action, and results. So for the situation, when you're responding, what you do is you provide a setting for the example that you're using, right? That's the situation. When you're responding to the question, tell me about a time when, what you do is you provide a setting, right? You provide a setting for the example that you will be using. So you make sure you provide a setting. So your setting, for example, could be a project that you had to do around, I don't know, Christmas time, Easter time, or just generally the holiday time. Let's say Christmas time. And you had a project that started maybe around September, and it was supposed to be completed by early January. It was specifically geared towards driving up sales, maybe if you work at a department store or something like that. And it was specifically geared towards, or a grocery store, right? Geared towards an increase in sales, right? So sales, having an increase in sales. And so now that is your setting. You've provided that setting. Your goal was to increase sales around the holiday time by such and such percent, right? So you're giving them context, basically is what you're doing. You're giving the interviewers some context. So keep STAR in mind. You're providing context. The other thing is the task. So describe the task involved in the situation and what were you specifically asked to do. So I kind of already got into that. So the setting was where you worked, at a grocery store or the mall or whatever the case is. The task was to increase sales by X amount of percent, right? So you've got your setting, and then you've got your task, right? The action now that you took. So now you've got to discuss what actions you took to accomplish your task, right? So this is big. Keep the focus on you, right? Keep the focus on you when you're responding to this. Yes, you can talk about your team members and all that type of stuff, all those people who are involved in the project and assisting you, right? But make sure you keep the focus on you, because the interview, you're the one in the interview. So make sure you keep that focus on you. What did you do to make sure that this project was successful? What are the tasks what tasks did you undertake? And how did you delegate tasks, or whatever the case is, depending on how many people were working with you, right? That is the A, that's the action. So you've got to be able to talk about that. The next one is the results. Obviously, that's what happened, right? That's obviously, the results would obviously be what happened. What was the outcome? And then even if it was successful, did you go back and do some type of diagnostics or whatever the case on it? Kind of look back to see, well, still, what could have been improved? What were some areas, even though we had relative success, what were some areas and some things that could possibly be changed moving forward, right? So that is the positive evidence question. And under that, remember, you have STAR, right? So situation, task, action, results. Be able to respond to, tell me about a time when, using STAR. Keep that in mind. Make sure you're using STAR. Okay, so I'm going to move on now to, let's move on to the contrary evidence question. So you get one of those contrary evidence questions, and so how do you respond to that, right? So it might be, tell me about a time when you missed a deadline, right? Or tell me about a time when you had a project to complete and it wasn't successfully completed, right? And so to respond to those questions, you're going to use contrary evidence questions, right? Contrary evidence questions. And so again, we have different categories here. We have S, which stands for situation again. So you're going to provide some situation to help you respond to that question. So again, what is the situation that you're going to provide? So maybe the task, we can go back. You were trying to increase sales by whatever the case is, and you were not able to successfully do so, right? I mean, and that is the situation. Well, the situation is just that you're trying to increase sales, right? That is the situation. You were trying to increase sales, holiday sales. So let's kind of leave it at that point. All right, after S, now we have H, hindrance, right? We have hindrance. So what challenges or what obstacles did you face? Because obviously you weren't able to increase sales. So what happened, right? So S now stands for hindrance. What got in your way, right? Be able to talk about that. What got in your way? Be really careful here not to badmouth people, right? Be really careful not to badmouth people and start talking really bad about people and so, because remember, you were in charge of this project. So if you were in charge, what about your what does that say about your management skills? You know, your ability to work with people and get things done regardless of, you know, whatever type of conflict that may arise. So don't just throw people under the bus and bad talk people, or whatever the case is. That does not look good, right? That does not look good. So be really careful with that. So S is situation, H is hindrance, right? So as a matter of fact, the word under contrary evidence questions, it's share, right? It's share. So S-H-A-R-E. Whereas under the other one, it was star, right? So keep that in mind. Okay, so action. Again, what action did you take, right? What actions did you take to overcome those obstacles or those challenges? So now you have to talk about the actions or the challenges, the actions that you took to overcome the obstacles or the challenges that you faced, right? So that's action. That's A for action. Then obviously, what were your results? What were the outcome? All right, that's the R. And then evaluation. So what, going in retrospect, going back, when you did the evaluation, what specifically went wrong? What were you able to diagnose looking back in retrospect? What did you realize you needed to do to make, you know, as far as going forward, what changes do you now know you need to make, right? What are the changes you now need to make going forward? So what I'm going to do is down below, I am going to put positive evidence questions, and I'm going to put star just so that you remember. And then under the behavioral, under the contrary evidence questions, I'll put share so that you remember exactly what I'm discussing. And then as you listen to the video, you can fill those in, because I think that would be really helpful to you as well. So remember, with these with the behavioral type of interview, it's probably the most popular, probably is the most popular type of interview. You get a lot of questions along those lines. You know, tell me about a time when, you know, and what did you do, and that sort of stuff. That is something that you've got to be able to definitely respond to. What I'm gonna do is, in a subsequent video, I'm gonna actually go through several of those questions, maybe about I don't know, 6 or 7 of them. We'll go through them, and I'll give you some suggestions in how you can actually answer those types of questions. But I just kind of wanted to make you aware of what is a behavioral type interview, right? Remember that it is very common, and you're going to come across this type of interview. So, you know, my next video about interviews, what I'll actually do now is to get in and start answering, or start giving you some possible answers to some interview questions. All right, and remember to check down below, and I'll include some information from this video down below as well. All right, and then if you've got any particular type of interview you want me to talk about, or question that you like for me to respond to, you know, just drop that in the comments or whatever the case is, and I'll be happy to do so. All right, so thank you very much for taking the time to watch the video. Again, please subscribe, turn on your post notifications. Don't forget to go back and look at the other videos. I have a couple more videos on interviews as well. All right, so check those out. Make sure to share as well. It helps the channel grow. Don't forget to hit the like button, and until next time, peace.